Hello and welcome back to the channel. So we will take off from where we left off in the previous video. So if you haven't seen the previous video, I'll make sure to leave a link to that video in the YouTube card as well as the video description down below. To log into our Azure portal, we come to our web browser and then we click in the address bar at the top and you type portal.azure.com and press enter. So when we do that, I would just pick my username. So I would just click my username. And then I'm going to put in my password and click on sign in. So I'll click sign in. I will just click yes. And then I'm taken to the next screen that I have to verify my identity. If you remember in our previous video, we did set up a multi-factor authentication. So I'm going to click on the multi-factor authentication and then put in my code. All right, so I have put in my authentication code for my multi-factor authentication, and now I'm taken into the Azure portal. So just from here, looking at the Azure portal dashboard, this is the home screen of the Azure portal. If you look in the address bar, you will see portal.azure.com/home. So this is the home screen. The first thing I want to do is just to take us through how we can navigate the Azure portal. So we will begin this exercise by going to the top right corner of our window. So when you look at the top right corner, you see the username that is logged into Azure portal. So when I click the little icon here, it shows me the little drop-down window, and it allows me to see the option where I can sign out of my Azure account, or I can click on my Microsoft account to be able to see more details about my profile for this account, or I could switch directory. Currently, we do not have multiple directories, but sometimes when you work in organizations that has more than one directories, this allows you to switch between directories. Moving forward, we come to this next option with the little human being and the little speech symbol at the back. This is for us to provide feedback to Microsoft about our experience and use of the Azure portal. So if I click on this drop down opens and it gives you the option to provide your feedback and submit it to Microsoft. Microsoft will use that information to improve Azure based on the feedback that you provide. Moving forward, we come to this round circle with the question mark. So before we come there, I will just click on the X to close this drop down. And then I will click on this round circle with the question mark. This has to do with the support and troubleshooting. So if I click on this question mark, it's going to open a little blade and allows me to see other options. I can view the service health of my Azure portal. I can go to other resources that are linked down here below. Like I could go to the Azure community. I could look at the Azure documentation. I could look at other FAQs for billing and visit the Quick Start Center, which is something that came up when we newly created our Azure account. I could also type in questions here or search on keywords that I would like to see. So I will just click on the X to close this. And then the next one has to do with the gear. And this gear is the settings of our Azure portal. So if I click on this gear, it opens the portal settings, as you can see in the top left-hand corner. So the very first place we are on is directories plus subscription. So this gives us information about our subscription. So currently we just have one directory or one subscription. So it tells us the information right here. you can add custom domain into Azure, but by default, when you create your Azure account, it will always have the .onmicrosoft.com domain appended to whatever the username is. So that's something to keep in mind. But like I said, you can add your custom domain into Azure, which is something that we will look at a little bit later in subsequent videos. Moving to our left hand, we have advanced filters. So when you click on advanced filter, it allows you to filter. Again, we don't have any filters, but this is where you will do your filters. Then we move forward and we click on appearance plus startup views. So this has to do with the appearance of our Azure portal interface. By default, the menu behavior is set to fly out. So when I click to the top left on these three lines, which is the hamburger menu, when I click on it, see the menu just flew out and it shows a list of our favorite Azure services. And then if I click back on the hamburger menu, the menu disappears. But if we set it to dark and we click apply, it will just have the menu always available to our left. So that's where you can choose whether you want the fly out option, which is the default option, or you want it to be dark, which will always just be pinned at the left. Then we have the next area is the service menu behavior. It is set to collapse by default. If you want it expanded, you can just click on it and pick an option. Then we come down to the theme. So the auto theme is actually based on the settings of your operating system. So if my operating system now is on light mode, it will automatically have this set to light mode. That is the Azure portal interface. If my operating system is set to dark mode, this will automatically switch to dark mode. Mine is on light mode. I will just click on dark mode and click on apply just to have it change to dark mode. I prefer dark mode because it is less stress on my eyes. Then when we come down at the bottom, we have startup views. So this has to do with when you first log into your Azure portal, where should you be taken to? Should you be taken automatically to the home screen, or should you be taken to the dashboard? So it's completely up to you which option that you would like to view when you log in by default. I will go to home in the top left and click on home. So this is the home screen of our Azure portal. If I click on the second option below home, which is dashboard, it will open the dashboard. So that option there in the settings has to do with, do you want to just be taken directly to the dashboard when you log into your Azure portal, or do you want to be taken to the home screen? So you can set your option based on your preference. So I'm just going to click back on the gear and come back to appearance plus startup. So we ended on startup views. So going forward, we click on language plus region. And this brings us to the language that we have our Azure portal in, and also our region format. I'm an English speaker, so I will keep it to language English. And then regional format, I will change it to English Canada. So you can choose your language and region format based on your location. So I'm going to click English Canada, and I'm just going to click on apply. I will click on OK, and it's going to just refresh my entire browser to change into the language settings that I chose for my region. So going forward, I'll click on my information, and then this brings us to where we see information about our account. And then the next thing is signing out plus notifications. So I will click on that. And this has to do with idle time. If I'm not using my Azure portal, how long should it take for the Azure portal to automatically log me out. So if I enable directory level idle timeout, if I activate this, then I can set the time either in hours or in minutes for it to time out if it is not being used for a while. And then you have notifications are also set up. Show pop-up notification is enabled. Show teaching bubbles is also enabled. So the next thing we're going to do is to come to the next one that looks like a bell, which is the notification. So right now we have one notification that is on red. That's why we see the number 1 on the belt. So I'm just going to first close this blade and say, okay, I don't want to save changes. I'll just click on the bell. So when I click on the bell, I see my one on red notification that is just telling me about my Azure credit. And when you look here, you can see that this information came up 2 minutes ago. So you can click dismiss or to just dismiss, but this is where you will look at notification of activities that you are performing within the Azure portal. Moving on, we have the Cloud Shell. So when I click on the Cloud Shell, it's going to open the Cloud Shell at the bottom of my screen. And the Cloud Shell, to set it up, you require a storage account to set the Cloud Shell. This is something that we will do in subsequent video. But one thing I just want to draw our attention to, the Cloud Shell allows us to administer Azure using the command line. So everything that we can do graphically, we can also do it from the command line. Secondly, the Cloud Shell allows us to administer Azure from the command line, like I said, but also within the web browser. So with this, you do not need to install any application on your computer. You can just go to the Azure Cloud Shell, and then you have the option to either use it using Bash or PowerShell. Again, we will come to using the Cloud Shell in subsequent video. But Bash is Linux, so our videos about Linux were intentional because that gives us the fundamental knowledge that we need to know, and then we can also use that knowledge to administer Azure using Bash. Or again, if you know PowerShell, you can also do the same using PowerShell. Okay, I'm just going to open a new tab because you can have your Azure Cloud Shell just open at the bottom here, or you can then have the Cloud Shell open in its own window. So when I click shell.azure.com and press enter, it's going to open straight to the Cloud Shell, but this time around, it's not just going to be at the bottom of the window as we see in this tab. It's just going to take the entire screen. So you can go directly to the website shell.azure.com, or you can just open the Cloud Shell right within the Azure portal, and you have it right at the bottom of the screen like we did a few seconds ago. So then moving forward, we're just going to click on this to close the Cloud Shell. This is Copilot, which is Microsoft Artificial Intelligence. So you can click on it and ask questions and we'll be able to answer. And then another area that is really powerful when it comes to the Azure portal has to do with this search bar. So I can search for services here, or I can just type in words, and then every service that has a similar word will appear. For example, if I just type database, everything that has database will show up. If I type Windows, everything that has Windows in it will show up, even including documentation, marketplace, and services. So this is really powerful search feature when it comes to the Azure portal. Moving forward, we have upgrade. This is simply to allow us to upgrade our subscription. Currently, we are using the free tier subscription, so you can either upgrade from that straight to pay as you go subscription. So the next thing is the word Microsoft Azure. So wherever you are in the portal, if you click on Microsoft Azure, it's just going to bring you back to the home screen. Okay, coming to the menu, we have the home screen, and then we have the dashboard, and then we have all services. So when I click on all services, it will show me all of the services that Azure has to offer. And then on your left of the services, you see the various categories of the services. So if I'm looking for database related services, when I click on this category, databases, it's just going to show me all the services that are related to databases. If I click on AI plus machine learning, it's going to show me all of those services that are related to that category. If we want to set up virtual machine falls under the compute services. So if I click on compute, it's going to show me all of the services that are related to compute. So that's how you can view all the services, and also you can filter as well through the services. Then for favorite, these are the frequently used services in Azure. So by default, those ones are pinned right here. You can also add your own pin to services so that they show up here. So for example, if I click on DevOps, these are the DevOps services. So if I want, let's say, GitHub to be pinned in this menu, when I come to GitHub, I will just come to the right and click on the star, and then it's going to pin GitHub. So now you see GitHub is located at the bottom here. If I come back and click on the star, it will disappear from the bottom left, as you can see currently. So I'm just going to go back and just pin it to just have it there. So that's how you will pin a service that you always use. So you can just pin it to the menu there. And then also we have all resources. So when we click on all resources, we will see all resources that we have created in Azure. Currently, we don't have resources yet, but it is something that we will create momentarily. Going forward, we have resource groups. So resources are grouped into what we call resource groups. So again, we don't have a resource group. When we are setting up our first virtual machine, we will create a resource group. So, and then also the Quick Start Center. So if I click on Quick Start Center, it's going to bring me to the Quick Start Center. This was the first area that we saw when we first created our Azure account. It brought us to the Quick Start Center. So you can always come back to the Quick Start Center by clicking on Quick Start. And these are other favorite services that are pinned here as well. Then App Service, Function App, SQL Database, Azure Cosmos DB, Virtual Machine Load Balancers, Storage Accounts, Virtual Networks, and Microsoft Entra ID, Monitor, Advisor, Microsoft Defender for Cloud, Cost Management plus Billing. This will be something that you want to pay attention to, because this has to do with all of your costs and billing. So how you are charged and what services you have and what amount each service is generating, they will all be on our cost management area. So if I click on cost management, it shows us other information as well. I'm just going to click on cancel there. And yeah, so you can click on invoice to see the invoice. So right now I owe $0 because it's a free account. And then you can see usage plus charges is going to give you information about the charges. And then payment method is going to show which payment method you have in your Azure subscription, going to show the Azure subscription. So yeah, that's just a quick overview of cost management plus billing. And then again, you have help plus support. If I click on help support, it allows me to get other help documentation. It allows me to see the service help, and it also allows me to create tickets as well. So if I want to create ticket to send to Microsoft to resolve an issue that I'm having difficulties with, I can just click on that help plus support and then click on create a support request, and this will be sent to Microsoft, and an engineer will be assigned to that ticket and they will contact me to resolve the problem. But I have to have that as part of my subscription. So depending on the subscription package that you have for Microsoft, you may or may not have access to creating a support request. So it depends on your support plan pretty much. So if I click on support plans, it shows us the various support plans. So we have basic support plan, which is what we currently have with our free Azure account. So it tells us that as part of this support plan, customer service and communities, I have 24/7 access to customer service documentation, white papers, and support forums. Best practices, I have full set of Azure Advisor recommendation. And then health status and notification, I have access to those. But then technical support, I don't have that. And then other support, I do not have. Then you have developer support plan, you have standard support plan, and then you have professional direct support plan. So take your time to just read through these various support plans and see what are the different offerings that Microsoft has to offer on each support plan. When you come down to the bottom, you'll see that the developer support plan has $29 per month. The standard support plan has $100 per month. And then the professional direct one has $1,000 per month when you look at the pricing. So again, take a look at that. Pretty much that's a quick overview of our Azure portal interface. So I'm just going to click on the X to close this blade, and then I'm going to click this two less than sign to collapse the menu so that it is like this. And then what I want to do is just to click on the home button to come to my Azure portal home screen. So once I come to the Azure portal home screen, one thing I want to do is to click on free services to just see what are some of the free services that we have. In our previous video, we discussed that the free services are divided into two. There is the free services that is always free, and then there is the free services that is free for 12 months or based on certain number of hours. So for virtual machine, we can have a Windows virtual machine and will be free for 750 hours or for 12 months. And for that, we have to be using the B1S and the B2ATS V2 virtual machine. Then for Linux virtual machine, we also have 750 hours. So, and then we have for Azure Managed Disk, we have, as part of the free tier, we have two quantity of 64 gigabyte of storage. And then we have 5 gig for Azure Blob storage. It goes on to show us other free services and the limit that each service has. So I'm just going to just go up, but again, you can take your time to go through the various free services that Microsoft has to offer here. But I'm just going to the top, and I'm just going to come here on a Windows virtual machine and click on create so that we can set up our first Azure virtual machine. So I'm just going to click on create, and then I will let that to read, and then we'll open the window or the blade as it is called. It will open the blade and allow me to create my virtual machine. Again, this is my only subscription I have, so it's selected as subscription by default. and then I have to create a resource group. So a resource group is simply a logical group that you can put resources in. And what is recommended is for you to group resources by, let's say, lifetime. For example, if I'm creating a test Windows virtual machine, and then I'm going to have that test machine for 3 months before I delete the machine, all of the resources that the machine needs to run, it would be recommended and advisable to have the virtual machine and all of its resources within the same resource group so that they are there based on their lifetime. So after 3 months, if I'm getting rid of the virtual machine, I can get rid of the resources that are associated with the virtual machine as well. You do not want to have a virtual machine in a different resource group, and then you have some of the resources of that virtual machine in other resource group. So when you delete that virtual machine, those resources could be lingering around. And then because with Azure subscription, you are billed for the usage of those resources. You don't want to delete a virtual machine and then still be billed for resources that were affiliated with that virtual machine. So based on lifetime, it go to group resources. Also, resources that are related to the same project should also be grouped in one resource group. So let's say you are setting up a virtual machine to provide value-added services to your customer. So it's better to put all the resources that are related to that project in the same resource group. So right now, we do not have a resource group. So to create a resource group, we will just click on Create New, and it will ask us to put in our resource group. So I'm just going to start it by saying AZ for Azure, ROG for resource group. I'm just going to put hyphen KLA, and then so Azure resource group Kou Louise Academy. That will be the name of our first resource group. And I will just put hyphen 01 since this is our first resource group. So I will click on OK. You can name your resource group however you want to name it. Then this is our first virtual machine. So we can give it a name. So I'm just going to say Azure Virtual Machine dash, and I will say, so it tells us that our virtual machine name cannot contain special character. So I will just backspace that Azure VM, and then Kou Louise Academy is SVR server 01. Then DC, I will just say DC 01 for domain controller 01. So this is our region. So based on your location, choose the appropriate region that applies to you. So I'm in Canada and I have Canada Central. I'll just look at the region that I have. So there are not many regions that are available here, I think, as part of the free tier. So I'm just going to keep it to Canada Central. So for the image has to do with the operating system that we are installing. So right now we have it on small disk, Windows Server 2022 Data Center, and then this is Core Edition. So when you point on it, it tells you that this is part of the free tier. I'm just going to click on it. Instead of installing Server Core, I want to install it as a full GUI. So I'm just going to choose Windows Server 2022 Data Center Generation 2. The small disks are all part of the free tier. So I'm just going to click on this. So it tells us free service eligible. So it's eligible for free service. So make sure that you are choosing the one that has small disk in the name for Windows, because that's part of your free tier. It even tells you you are in the free trial period. Costs associated with this VM can be covered by the remaining credit on your subscription. So it will be charged to my subscription. Size is already to the B1S. So normally, without the free subscription, we will be paying $11.39 per month for this virtual machine based on the size. So if I click on the drop down arrow, it shows all other sizes for our free. Remember, we have B1S or B2ATS V2. The B1S has one virtual processor, and then the B2ATS has two virtual processors. So this is also part of our free subscription eligibility. So I'm just going to click on the second one to have two processors. So we can create a username. I'm just going to put KLA as a username, and then we can put our password for the username, and then we can confirm our password, and then we come down. So at this option, we have inbound port rules. So this is where we want to connect to our virtual machine. We can say inbound. If we set it to RDP, which is remote desktop protocol, this will allow us to download an RDP file that we can remotely connect to our virtual machine. So I'm just going to keep that option available, and now I'm going to click on Next to go to the next tab. So for this tab, it has to do with tags. So you can create tags. So maybe let's say you are deploying this virtual machine is going to be used by the finance department. So you can create a tag for the finance department and tag that machine. And then maybe the next virtual machine you are creating for the IT department, you can create a tag called IT and also associate it with that virtual machine. So what that does is allows you to easily filter through when you are searching for a particular virtual machine. Let's say you want to see a list of all the virtual machines that were deployed for the finance department. You can then do a search based on the tag that you created and associated with those virtual machines, and then it will show you those virtual machines. And then also it has to do also with when it comes to billing, because you can be working with an organization and different departments have their own budget. So you can have different subscriptions that are associated with different resources that are linked to different departments. So you could have all of the IT resources linked to the IT credit card or IT subscription, and then you can have another subscription for the finance, and all of their resources are linked to that. And then you can have an admin, HR, and then they all have their own subscription. So that way, the bills are segregated among the different departments based on the resources that they are using. So that will be when the tag will come in handy. So again, if we want to create tag, we can create tag. If not, we can just click on either click next here, which is review plus create, or we can then click the tab here, review plus create. It will just take us to the next tab, which will just pretty much show us a summary of our costs based on the virtual machine we selected. This will be our cost per hour. And then we see the terms and conditions, and we see our subscription information. And then we can click on create. And then this will create our first virtual machine. So we're going to give it a few seconds. And as you can see in the notification, it tells us deployment in progress. So we have to just give it a few seconds and allow this virtual machine to be deployed. All right, so we have successfully deployed our first Windows virtual machine. So we can either click on go to resource to go to that virtual machine, or we can pin it to the dashboard so that when we go to the dashboard, we can always see that virtual machine. So I will just go to resource, and then it's going to open that virtual machine. So this is our virtual machine that we created. Let's suppose that I was on the home screen. So if I click on home, if I'm on the home screen, I will see resources, and I will see the resources here. But when I click on virtual machine, it's going to show me a list of all of the virtual machines that I have. Currently, we just have the one virtual machine, which is running Windows, as we can see. So I can also click on the name, and we'll bring us back to that same window that it brought us to. Okay, at this point, we can start the virtual machine. Is already started. We can stop it, we can restart it, or we can hibernate it or delete the virtual machine. First thing I want to do here is just to show us on the overview of this virtual machine, to show us that we have a public IP address that is associated with this virtual machine. And this will be the IP address that we can use to perform a remote desktop connection to our virtual machine. When we created the virtual machine, there were other resources that were created with the virtual machine, like our disks were created, our network was created, our load balancer, and all of those other additional resources were created with this virtual machine. So if I go back to home and I go to resource groups, so we have the one resource group that we created. If we open this resource group, we see that we have machine is right here. We have the public IP address. We have a network security group. We have a virtual network. We have our virtual network interface card, as well as our virtual disk that the operating system is installed. So all of these resources are needed for this virtual machine to function properly. So just by creating the virtual machine, all of these things were created for us with this virtual machine. So these are the associated resources that this virtual machine needs. These are what I was talking about, that when you create a resource group, all of the associated resources for the virtual machine should all live within the same resource group. That's what Microsoft recommends. So I will just click on the name of the virtual machine from here. It will take us back to the virtual machine. So I would like to bring our attention to the top left here where we have connect. So if I click the little drop down arrow, I have two options to either connect or connect via Bastion. So for now, we will just click on connect, and it's going to open this connection blade, and it allows us to download the remote desktop file. So I'm just going to click on download remote desktop, and I'm just going to save as. Right, so I have downloaded the remote desktop file, as you can see. So it is right here with the name that we gave our virtual machine. So if I double click on this remote desktop file, it's going to bring up the remote desktop string. So once we have the remote desktop string, we can just click on connect, and it's going to prompt us for our password. So this was the username we created, KLA. So I'm just going to put in the password, and then I will click on OK, and then it's going to perform a remote desktop connection. So our login failed, so I will just put /, which is just a way to force the login to use a local account on the computer that we are connecting to. So I'll just put the username and put the password, and I'll click OK, and it's going to bring up this window asking us to choose OK if we agree with the certificate. So I will just say yes, because we want a remote desktop. And now we have the remote desktop window. So we will just give it a few seconds and allow the remote desktop to create the user profile for this user, since the user is logging in for the first time into our Windows Server 2022. All right, so we have successfully performed a remote desktop connection to our Azure Virtual Machine. So I'm just going to click on this to make it big. So I'll just say yes for the network discovery. I'm just going to click on X to close this. And this is our server manager dashboard for our virtual machine. If I click on local server, it will bring us to the local server, and we can see the name of our Azure Virtual Machine is here. And then this allows us to configure our time zone. So currently, I'm just going to go to the time zone and click on the time zone and change my time zone. I'm going to click change time zone. I'm currently in the Eastern Standard Time Zone. I'm just going to pick that from the list here. And then I'm just going to say Eastern Time, US, Canada. I'm just click OK. And I click OK. That's going to change my time. As you can see, it is after 3 a.m. Yes, I'm up late recording this YouTube video. Yes, so I changed my time zone. So currently we have work group. So because we haven't set up a domain yet, so we have work group. But this is similar to how we will have Windows installed in our Microsoft Hyper-V. So again, we will follow the same procedure to set up a directory here. And then we can click on Tools, and will show us the various tools. Currently, we haven't set up Active Directory, so we don't have Active Directory users and computers. So to do that, just like we've done in previous video, is to click on Manage, and we'll come to Add Roles and Features. So we just click on Next, Role-Based or Feature-Based Installation. Keep it to that option. Click on Next. And then we just have one server for now. We'll go to Next. And then we want to install Active Directory, right? So it's Active Directory Domain Services. That's what we want to install. So the second option, Active Directory Domain Services. And then we'll click Add Features. And then we'll click on Next. And then we'll click Next. And then we'll click Next. And then we install. And then it's just going to install our Active Directory Domain Services for us. And then we'll give that a few seconds and allow that to install. And then once that is done, we will come back and set up Active Directory on our Azure Windows Virtual Machine. All right, so we have successfully installed the Active Directory Domain Services on our Windows Server 2022. So we'll click on Close. And the next thing we're going to do is just to click on the notification and click on Promote to promote this server to a domain controller. So again, it is very similar to when we set up our Windows Server 2022 within Hyper-V. We're going to click the last option, which is Add a new forest. So this is a new forest. We're just going to say AZ for Azure, ALA.org, just to have Azure. Again, you can give whatever name you want to give to your domain, and you click on Next. Microsoft recommends that DNS is integrated in Active Directory, so we'll keep that option active. Global Catalog, by default, the very first domain controller is the Global Catalog, so that option is selected for us, and in fact it's grayed out, so we cannot uncheck it. So here is the directory mode restore password. So we can set up our restore mode password, repeat that password, and then click on Next. Get DNS delegation, we just leave that for now and go to Next. Give it a few seconds and allow it to generate the NetBIOS name. And then we have the NetBIOS name, and then we'll go to Next. The Active Directory database is stored within the Windows folder on the drive C in this folder called NTDS. These are the default locations for the database, the log, and the system volume, or sysvol for short. So I will just keep it to the default options, click on Next. We are brought to the screen to review our selections. So once we are okay with everything that we have selected so far, we can click on Next. And then it's going to go through the prerequisite check. And then it's going to allow us to continue on with the installation. So we'll give that a few seconds. And then once prerequisite tests pass, we go to Install. And the installation begins. So we will give it a few seconds and allow it to carry out the installation. So we are prompted and told you are about to be signed out. Windows will shut down. We are okay with that. We'll click on close because Windows needs to restart after the installation. So we're just going to allow it to restart. So I'm just going to click on OK. Because we restarted our computer, so we lost the connection to a remote desktop, which is normal because we shut down the computer. So we're going to just double click on our remote desktop file that we have here. So I'll double click on it. And then I'm prompted about the remote desktop. You can say, don't ask me again for this connection. If you don't want to always be prompted, you can just check this. I'm just going to leave it. I like seeing it, but again, you can click it to not always have to see it. So I'll click on connect. And then I'll make sure for the username, I'm going to click on more choices. Now I'll click on use a different user. Click back on more choices to close that. I'll put a dot, backslash, and put the username, just so that I don't have it logging in with a different credential from my local computer. So I will click on OK. And then it's going to bring the certificate. Again, you can always choose the option to not show this message. And then you click on yes. And then it's going to perform a remote desktop connection back to our Windows Server 2022 that is in Azure. So we'll give it a few seconds and allow it to log back into our Windows Server 2022. All right, so we have successfully logged back into our Windows Server 2022. So I will just click on this X to close this and then click on local server. And now we see our computer name and then we see our domain that we just created. So now this computer is now a domain controller. So we have our hard drive space, which tells us the total hard drive is 30 gigabyte, and then we'll have 1 gig of memory. So this hard drive is the operating system hard drive. This is how you install Windows on Azure, your first Windows server, and how we configure Active Directory on it. So now when we go to tools, we see all of our tools have appeared, Active Directory users and computers. I'm just going to click on that, and then it's going to show us the Active Directory user and computer. I'm just going to expand this, and then we have the built-in container. So we have the computer built-in container domain controller will show us the domain controller we have, and it will list all of the domain controller. For now, we only have one domain controller. Then we'll click on users and show us the users and group. Right now, we only have one user, which is KLA user, right? So I will minimize this, and then I'm going to minimize this remote desktop connection, come back to my Azure portal. And then the next thing I want to do is, while I'm on this virtual machine, I can click on disks, and it's going to show me the disks that we created, which is the 64 gig disks. And then this is where the operating system is installed. As you can see, it's a OS disks. So from the free tier, we have access to 2 64 gig hard drive. So we currently have one 64 gig hard drive, which is where the OS is installed. So if we want to have a data disk, we can create a data disk on this area data disk. But for now, I will just come back to my remote desktop and just minimize this, and then click on the File Explorer at the bottom and just click on this PC. So as you can see, this is the one hard drive we have that the operating system is installed on. So I'll go back to the Azure portal by minimizing this remote desktop connection, and then click on create and attach a new disk. So I'll click on that, and it's going to allow us to create a data disk. So we have logical unit number. So this is the first data disk, so we can keep your logical unit number to 0. And then we'll click here, and then let us give it a name. So we can say Azure VM data disk 01. So it's for our Windows computer. So we can say VM, we can say Azure Win VM data disk 01. And then we come to the storage type. So right now we have Premium SSD. That's the only option we have up there. And then we have other options down here as well. So we will come to storage and talk about these different types of redundancy for the storage. For now, we'll keep it to locally redundant storage, LRS, and then we'll just keep it to Premium SSD. And then the size, we have the option to use 64 gig. So I'm just going to change the size to 64 gig for our size for the hard drive. And then encryption, we can allow Azure to manage our encryption key. And for host caching, we just keep it to the default, and we just say apply. And it's going to create our virtual disk. So we'll give it a few seconds and allow it to create the virtual disk and update it. So when we click on this notification, we'll see the activity that is going on. So we just click on the S to close that blade. And then now we have a premium hard disk that has been created. So if I click on refresh, we see this is the premium disk that was created. So when we go back to our remote desktop connection and we click on refresh, so for now, we do not see the hard drive. But what we can do is to click in the search here or to go to run and type disk mgmt.msc. So this will open the disk management console. And once I maximize, it automatically prompts me for initializing the new disk that we created. So this is the information for that new disk that we just created. So I will just format it using the GPT partition table. So I'm just going to click on OK. It's going to show the hard drive. So it's 64 gig. So we see the 64 gig is here unallocated. So what we can do is to right click on this and say new simple volume and go to next and assign the entire 64 gig size to the disk, but the size here is shown to us in megabyte. And then we just go to next, and then the drive letter, we can click it and see, okay, so our CD-ROM is using drive D. So we'll just use the next available drive letter, which is E. So we'll keep it to E and then click on next, and then NTFS, and then we can say data. Name, we just want to label it data, and then we can keep it to perform a quick format of this disk, and then we'll go to next, and then give us a summary, and then we'll say finish. I will just maximize this. So again, I'm just going to swap the letters between the disk and the CD-ROM drive. So I'm just going to right click on the CD-ROM drive and say change drive letters, and then click change. I will change it to F. Okay, yes. And then I will come to this new disk we created, right click on the disk. So right click on the data and say change drive letter and path. Click change to drive D. Okay, Yes. So now we have drive C and drive D for the disk. I just like it to be in order, C and D for the disk, and then E can be for the CD-ROM drive. I'm just going to say change drive letter. I'm just going to change the CD-ROM drive back to E, and then I'll click on OK. I'll say yes, and then that has changed to E. So now I can minimize this window, and then when you come to the File Explorer, you have drive C, which is the OS partition. We have drive D, which is the data disk we created, and we have drive E, which is our DVD drive. So we have successfully added a disk to our Azure Virtual Machine. So we'll come back to the Azure portal. All right, so we are back to our Azure portal, and this is our Windows Virtual Machine that we created a few minutes ago. So I'll click on Home, and I'll click on Virtual Machine. So we have our Windows Virtual Machine. So this brings an end to this video. In this video, we started first by taking a look at the Azure portal and navigating the Azure portal. Then the next thing we did was we created our first virtual machine with Windows 2022 on it. And then the next thing we did was we set up Active Directory on the Windows virtual machine. Then the next thing after that, we added a data drive or a data disk to our virtual machine, and we went into Windows and we went through the configuration and had that set up for us. So now we'll just stop here for now. I'm sure this video will be over an hour long, so we'll stop here for now. In the next video, we're going to create another virtual machine, but this time around it will be a Linux virtual machine. And these exercises are good because if you have a work computer that you are not allowed to install Hyper-V on and create a virtual machine on it to practice, you can always set up your Windows virtual machine in Azure, and then you can practice on it. So in the next video, we will do another virtual machine which will be for Linux. So again, you can use that as a way to practice your Linux command within Microsoft Azure. So you'll be killing two birds with one stone. One, you are building up skills and knowledge of Azure and how to create a virtual machine and how to connect to the virtual machine. And then the next thing you will be doing is learning Linux at the same time on your Linux virtual machine in Azure. So those will be two skills that you'll be developing at the same time. So take care. If you like this video, like it. If you know of someone who will find this video useful, make sure to share this video with them. If you have any questions or any video suggestions that you would like to propose to us, make sure to leave those in the comment section below. If you just want to show your appreciation for what we do here on the channel, make sure to just leave those in the comment section down below. Again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the very next video. Take care, and I will catch you in the very next video. Bye.